Miranda, I'm sure I gave you $500,000. What on earth are you talking about? The Thanksgiving dining room was filled with the rich scent of spices, a turkey gleaming golden brown at the center of the table. I was thanking my Aunt Miranda for the bicycle she had supposedly given me as a gift. She stared at me with a deeply puzzled expression and replied, "I didn't give you any bicycle." At the moment she said that, holding a fine crystal wine glass in her hand, I heard a sound in my ears, as if something had irreparably shattered. I gently set down the silver fork I was holding and met my aunt's unwavering gaze. $500,000? Yes, you travel all over the world for work, don't you? That's why I gave you money instead of some object. I transferred it to your account. With that amount, you could easily buy a top-of-the-line Mercedes-Benz. Before she had even finished speaking, my younger sister, Kendall, who was sitting across from me, began coughing violently. The coffee she had been drinking splashed onto her pristine white silk dress, but she didn't even try to wipe it off. She was staring at her aunt in shock. The hand of my mother, Lorraine Prescott, who was seated beside her, was trembling slightly as well. She took a hurried sip of red wine as if trying to escape, but her eyes darted restlessly, unable to focus on anything. I chose my words carefully, keeping my voice as calm as possible. "Aunt Miranda, thank you very much, but that's strange. What was delivered in front of my house was definitely a rusty, used bicycle, almost 10 years old." "Used?" My aunt's eyebrows shot up in suspicion. "Yes, a few days ago my mother called me and said, 'It's a gift from Aunt Miranda. She asked me to send you an old bicycle she used to use so you wouldn't get out of shape. Right now, what's sitting in the bike parking area of my apartment is that old fitness bike. The chain's off and the basket is bent." Silence spread across the dining table. My aunt was a hard-nosed businesswoman who'd built a real estate empire from nothing. I watched calmly as doubt and sharp anger blended together in her eyes. "Lorraine, explain this to me." Her voice was low and cold. "A few weeks ago, I definitely deposited $500,000 into the account I share with Delaney, and I told you, let Delaney know and let her choose whatever she likes. Why has my gift been replaced with a bicycle?" My mother's mouth opened and closed soundlessly as she cast a pleading look toward Kendall, seated beside her. But Kendall was staring intently at her smartphone, her fingers moving frantically across the screen. It was as if she were desperately trying to erase something of hers from existence right then and there. "Well, Miranda, that's just some kind of mistake. Delaney must be misunderstanding something." My mother's voice cracked, utterly lacking in conviction. I lowered my gaze to my fingertips. I make a living as a cybercrime investigator, tracking down numbers that have vanished into the digital shadows, working for governments and international banks. The specific figure my aunt mentioned, $500,000, my mother's obvious agitation, and my sister's fingers constantly trying to hide her phone. My professional instincts were quietly but powerfully telling me the truth. Beneath this lavish Thanksgiving dinner lay a nauseating betrayal carried out by my own flesh and blood. My consciousness drifted back 10 days earlier. It was on a Monday in November with a cold winter wind blowing outside. My office, my workplace, was wrapped as usual in a sterile, inorganic silence. I was deeply focused on analyzing a complex international money laundering scheme spread across multiple monitors. That silence was broken by the dull vibration of my smartphone. The name on the screen was my sister's, Kendall. "Hey Delaney, about Thanksgiving this year." Her voice coming through the speaker sounded oddly buoyant, unnaturally cheerful. "You said you've got tons of work piled up, right? So you don't have to push yourself to come back here for Thanksgiving this year. Mom also said this is an important time for Delaney's career, so we should let her rest. Plane tickets are expensive anyway. Use that money for yourself." I took my fingers off the keyboard. It was the first time in my life Kendall had ever worried about my job. For 33 years, she had never once spent time or consideration on anyone but herself.
"I can adjust my schedule. I'll talk to Aunt Miranda directly." "No, she's apparently super busy right now. Anyway, that's how it is. We'll handle things here, so you just relax over there. okay? Love you." The call ended abruptly. For a while, I stared at the darkened screen. Each of her words lingered in my mind like the kind of inconsistent data I deal with at work, leaving behind a quiet but persistent dissonance. The very next day, a large delivery truck pulled up in front of my apartment building. Miss Delaney Prescott. Correct. This delivery is from Miss Lorraine Prescott. A gift from my mother. Feeling uneasy, I went to receive it, and what was placed in front of me was not a gift box, but a bicycle. No, calling it a bicycle felt far too generous. It looked like a piece of junk salvaged straight from a landfill. The entire frame was covered in stubborn rust. The handlebars were warped, the chain had completely come off, the front basket was dented in multiple places, and the tires were flat, crushed beyond hope. Attached to the base of the handlebars was a card written in my mother's handwriting. "To Delaney, Aunt Miranda has been worried about your health since you sit all day, so she decided to give you a bicycle she used to love. It's a bit old, but it should be enough to get your body moving, don't you think? Don't waste your aunt's kindness. Use it gratefully." I stopped just short of touching the rusted metal. My aunt is an extremely strict woman, but she also values only the very highest quality. Would she really give her niece a bicycle so decrepit it felt downright dangerous? All for my health? And then there was Kendall's almost obsessive insistence that I not come home. A quiet but inextinguishable flame of suspicion ignited inside me. I immediately rebooked the earliest available flight and began preparing to return to my parents' house to see with my own eyes what they were trying to hide. On the plane, I checked my sister Kendall's Instagram. Her account, boasting over 100,000 followers as an influencer selling a luxury lifestyle, was overflowing with dazzling lies. One photo in particular caught my attention. The background was an upscale residential neighborhood. Front and center sat a pristine white Mercedes-Benz G-Class, so new I could almost smell the leather. Kendall was leaning casually against the hood, a champagne flute in hand, wearing a smile as radiant as it was triumphant. The caption read, "The best reward for myself. Hard work never betrays you. Mercedes-Benz G-Class. Luxury life. Gift to myself." After landing at the airport, I hurried toward my childhood home in a rental car. The moment I parked in front of the house, the first thing that leapt into my sight was that white car sitting proudly in front of the garage. I took a deep breath and got out. Before I even opened the front door, I heard laughter from inside, my mother's voice and Kendall's light, excited giggles. When I knocked, the laughter stopped abruptly. After a few seconds of silence, I heard the sound of the lock turning. "Oh, Delaney, why are you—" My mother's face when she opened the door wasn't colored so much as fear, but she quickly covered it with a strange smile. "I heard from Kendall that you were too busy with work to come back. Your father's on a sudden business trip today, too. But, well, welcome home." She hugged me. Her sweater smelled of expensive perfume, yet her arms were faintly trembling, and there was not the slightest warmth of genuine welcome in them. When I stepped into the living room, Kendall stood up from the sofa. On her finger sparkled an emerald-cut diamond so large I'd never seen anything like it before. "So you came after all. Weren't you supposed to be busy?" Her eyes seemed desperately to be searching for the truth behind my arrival. I pushed myself a bit. I also wanted to thank Aunt Miranda directly for her gift. Kendall's face stiffened ever so slightly. "Oh, that bicycle. Aunt Miranda really is worried about your health, but she's coming later today and we have so much to catch up on, so let's not bring that up, okay?" Just then, a man emerged from the kitchen. Perfectly styled hair, a confident posture, a suit that fits too well. Kendall's fiancé, Griffin Thorne.
Nice to meet you, Delaney. I've heard all about you from Kendall. A cybersecurity expert, right? I'm in the investment world myself, so maybe we'll have a chance to talk business someday. He extended his right hand with a polished smile. "And that beautiful Mercedes outside, whose is it?" When I asked casually, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Kendall answered as if shot from a spring. "Oh, that's Griffin's. His work as an investment consultant is going incredibly well right now. He bought the latest model brand new as an investment in himself. Isn't it amazing?" Well, actually, Kendall deserves half the credit. She's been doing great with her influencer sponsorships, and as an engagement gift, she put down a pretty substantial down payment. Honestly, it's a car far too good for me. Griffin looked slightly bashful, but clearly proud of her. I see. That really is wonderful to be able to exchange such incredible gifts with each other. What an ideal relationship, I said, never letting my smile fade. My mother pretended to be busying herself with dinner preparations, carefully avoiding eye contact with me. On the sideboard, I noticed a wedding brochure for Kendall's upcoming ceremony tossed there carelessly. A top-tier luxury hotel in New York, 300 guests, a custom-made wedding dress. In my mind, every single detail converted neatly into one number: $500,000. Delaney, don't just stand there. Come on, your aunt will be here any minute now. Why don't you get changed? That plain outfit of yours will ruin Thanksgiving. My mother said this coldly, brushing imaginary raindrops off my clothes. I went upstairs to the guest room and set down my bag. The face staring back at me in the mirror was surprisingly calm. From downstairs came cheerful laughter once again, followed by the pop of an expensive champagne cork, the $500,000. The rusted bicycle was delivered to my door, and the pristine white Mercedes sitting proudly in the garage. Every piece of the puzzle had already clicked perfectly into place in my mind. When dinner was ready, the doorbell rang. Aunt Miranda stood at the entrance. She wore a deep navy silk dress and a strand of large pearls around her neck. She looked more dignified than anyone else in the room. "Delaney, I'm so glad you came home. It makes me truly happy to see your face." She hugged me gently yet with unmistakable strength. For just a moment, something icy deep in my chest nearly melted at the warmth of her arms. She wasn't involved in this hypocrisy-filled scheme. That certainty only hardened my resolve. My aunt took a seat at the head of the table with my mother, Lorraine, on one side and Griffin, Kendall's fiancé, on the other. Across from me sat Kendall, fiddling with the latest iPhone while ostentatiously flashing the diamond on her engagement ring. Dinner proceeded smoothly on the surface. Kendall rattled on about her rapidly growing follower count and her extravagant wedding plans for next year. Griffin spoke modestly about his business ventures. My mother watched the two of them with dazzled, almost proud eyes, occasionally turning to me to offer barbed advice like, "You should polish yourself a bit more too, Delaney." And then, just as my aunt picked up a sharp knife to carve the turkey, I decided it was time to drop the bomb I had prepared. "By the way, Aunt Miranda, please allow me to thank you properly." My voice was calmer and clearer than I had expected. "Thank you so much for the bicycle. I'll be sure to take good care of it." In that instant, the knife struck the plate with a sharp clang that echoed through the room. My aunt froze mid-motion and slowly lifted her head. Her eyes wavered with deep confusion and an unnamed sense of dread. "A bicycle? Delaney, what are you talking about? What I gave you was $500,000. How does that turn into a bicycle?" The moment those words fell, Kendall, sitting across from me, violently spit out the coffee she had been drinking. "What? What are you—" Her face flushed red as she choked, her eyes wide with terror. Beside her, my mother dropped her fork. It clattered uselessly against the fine porcelain. I tilted my head deliberately and looked at my aunt. But Aunt Miranda, what arrived at my apartment was an old, rust-covered used fitness bike, one you were said to have used yourself. Mom handed it to me saying, "It's a gift from your aunt, worried about your health."
What did you say? I could see the color draining rapidly from my aunt's face. She slowly placed the knife down on the table, her gaze piercing straight through my trembling mother. "Lorraine, why has my gift been swapped for something like that?" "Well, Miranda, it's just some kind of mix-up. You know, today is Thanksgiving. Let's not get caught up in little details." "Little details?" My aunt's voice sliced through the room like a blade of ice. $500,000 disappearing and my niece receiving a piece of junk instead. That is a little detail to you? At that moment, Griffin, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Now, Aunt Miranda, this must be some kind of clerical error. I'll contact the bank tomorrow. For now, let's just enjoy this wonderful meal." No, Griffin, that won't be necessary. I reached into my bag, took out a thick file of documents, and placed it squarely on the table. Whether it was a mistake or not, we can confirm that right here, right now. Aunt Miranda, to be honest, over the past few days, there was something I simply couldn't shake, so I did a bit of my own investigation. I stood up and opened my tablet. I watched with cold satisfaction as my mother's and Kendall's faces drained of color in the glow of the screen. This was where my real work as a professional began. Delaney, what is all this? Aunt Miranda stared sharply at the display. Aunt Miranda, this is where your $500,000 went. I tapped the screen. Bank transaction records appeared. November 14th, you did, in fact, deposit $500,000 into my account, but just 20 hours later, at 10 a.m. on November 15th, nearly the entire amount, $499,800, was wired to an external account, and the recipient's name is sitting right there at this table, Kendall Prescott. What? Griffin, seated next to her, looked at Kendall in shock. Kendall, what is this supposed to mean? That Mercedes and the wedding funds? You told me those were proof of your success as an influencer. You said you bought everything with legitimate earnings. Kendall went pale, trembling as she dropped her gaze, unable to meet his eyes. Griffin, it seems you were just another one of the people she deceived, I said coldly, advancing to the next slide. Kendall, you sold out Aunt Miranda's trust and mine for your own luxury and for a wedding meant only to satisfy your vanity. You even dragged your completely unsuspecting fiancé into your lies, forcing him to play along with the illusion of a successful woman. I continued. Take a look at this Mercedes purchase contract. The registered owner is Kendall Prescott, and every single payment came from the stolen $500,000 taken from my account. Griffin, you were led to believe she bought it with her own money and ended up marching along in her personal parade of vanity. No, this can't be real. Griffin collapsed weakly back into his chair. Kendall's face twisted as she stood up abruptly. Stop it. This is all fabricated. Anyone could forge something like this. Delaney, you're trying to frame me. Fabricated? Unfortunately for you, these are official logs extracted directly from the bank's mainframe, complete with encrypted authentication signatures. Once I begin a serious investigation, there are no numbers in this world I can't reach. And this is the power of attorney that made the transfer possible. It was submitted to the bank without my knowledge. With it, Lorraine Prescott, my own mother, was granted full control over my account. Please look at the signature at the bottom. I took out a laser pointer and indicated a single spot. At first glance, it looks like my signature, but forensic digital analysis shows it was created by digitally compositing scans of my handwriting from multiple past documents. The pen pressure is unnaturally uniform. There's none of the microscopic variation that appears when a real human hand signs. And most importantly is this. I zoomed in on the signature to its maximum. When I sign important legal documents, I always place an almost invisible dot at the upper right of the first letter. It's an analog security habit I've used for years to protect myself, but it's missing here. Mom, you focus so hard on copying my handwriting that you never noticed my habit.
My mother covered her face and began to shake violently. I was only thinking about the family. Kendall needed a beautiful wedding. You already make more than enough money. I didn't think you'd notice. You didn't think I'd notice? You stole $500,000 from your own daughter and thought you wouldn't get caught in the very field she specializes in? My voice carried a chill that surprised even me. And Kendall, the slide changed. On the screen appeared her glamorous Instagram post side by side with the purchase contract for that white Mercedes in the garage. That car you bragged about online as a reward for yourself. I checked the VIN. It was purchased in full, in cash, the day after Aunt Miranda transferred the money to me. Hard work never betrays you, was it? Well, the effort you put into stealing someone else's money was certainly first rate. Stop it, Delaney. Don't talk like that. Kendall screamed and burst into tears, but those tears weren't remorse. They were the shrieks of pure self-love, of someone watching her glittering world collapse. The wedding venue deposit? $150,000. The custom dress? $30,000. The prefabricated luxury resort trip in Fiji? $20,000. All paid for with the money Aunt Miranda gave me. Isn't that right? Silence fell over the room again, but this was nothing like the false calm from before. It was heavy, suffocating, with nowhere to escape. My aunt slowly stood up. Her face was filled with a depth of quiet fury I had never seen before. Lorraine and Kendall, you didn't just sell my trust, you sold this family's very soul. With trembling hands, she took out her smartphone and dialed a number. Police. Yes, I'd like to report a serious case of financial fraud. The amount involved is $500,000. The location is my residence. The perpetrators are sitting at this very table. Aunt Miranda, are you serious? I'm your niece. Calling the police? This has to be a joke, right? Kendall pleaded in a shaking voice. This is no joke at all. My aunt never once met Kendall's eyes. I built this wealth through legitimate business, she said calmly, and I gave a gift worthy of my beloved niece. To steal it, lie to me, and treat me like a fool, this goes far beyond anything that can be excused by the word family. At that moment, Griffin, who had remained silent until now, scraped his chair loudly as he stood up. Griffin, where are you going? Kendall tried to grab her sleeve, but he shook her off as if she were filthy. Don't touch me. You make me sick. Griffin's voice was low, trembling slightly with rage. You told me you'd made a fortune through influencer sponsorships, that you wanted a wedding worthy of your success, that you wanted to pick me up in a top-of-the-line Mercedes. I was proud of your ambition, of the woman you claimed to be. But to think all of it was paid for with money stolen from your own sister. Were you trying to destroy my career too? No, Griffin, I just wanted you to see the best version of me. The best version of yourself? Being a thief is never the best. Spitting out those words, Griffin grabbed his coat from the closet and headed straight for the front door without looking back even once. This engagement is over as of this moment. Never appear in front of me again. The front door slammed a deep, heavy thud. It was the sound of Kendall's most cherished dream, her perfect lifestyle, collapsing beyond repair. Kendall crumpled to the floor, wailing uncontrollably. My mother pulled her sobbing daughter into her arms and glared at me with a face twisted in fury. Delaney, are you satisfied now? With a single word, your sister's life is ruined. We're family. How could you be so cruel? $500,000 is nothing to you. You could earn it again in no time. Why couldn't you just think of it as sharing a little with your sister? Sharing? I replied coolly, unmistakably. Mom, what you did wasn't sharing. It was stealing. You stole from me, forged my signature, used my name without permission, and damaged my credibility. Have you ever once thought about how much time and nerve I've burned crawling through the digital underworld to earn that money? But we're family. Yes, and that's something you should have remembered before you stole from me. Before long, the sound of sirens approached from a distance. Red and blue police lights alternately bathed the white walls of my childhood home in an eerie glow. Neighbors peeked out from windows or gathered along the street, watching with naked curiosity as two women were led away in handcuffs. Delaney, are you sure this is what you want? Aunt Miranda placed a hand gently on my shoulder and asked quietly. Her eyes held the pain of betrayal and yet still a complicated concern for her niece. Yes, Aunt Miranda, this isn't something we started. It's simply the end of the road they chose for themselves. After that, the investigation quickly moved beyond local police and was taken over by federal authorities. Interstate wire fraud, organized identity theft. Justice moved with ruthless speed. My mother, charged as the principal offender, was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison. When the verdict was read, she collapsed in tears in the courtroom, but I never once looked back. Kendall received probation with a suspended sentence for conspiracy after the fact and aiding fraud. But the real hell awaiting them lay outside the courtroom. First, my father filed for divorce. The fact that his wife of more than 30 years had forged their daughter's signature to steal money completely shattered the quiet man's heart. Then Kendall's perfect world vanished from the digital sea. The followers she had adored on social media turned into the cruelest critics the moment the scandal broke. Her beloved Mercedes, her lavish wedding plans, everything was exposed as having been paid for with money stolen from her sister. Her accounts were flooded daily with vicious abuse. Her career as an influencer collapsed entirely, to the point where she could no longer even walk down the street. Several months later, when I visited my aunt, she handed me an envelope. "This is a rightful gift. This time, go wherever you wish. Run forward with your own strength." Inside was another check for $500,000. With that money, I bought a pristine white Mercedes-Benz. Gripping the steering wheel of my new car, I gently pressed the accelerator. The powerful rhythm of the engine was the only thing celebrating the beginning of my new life. Since then, I never looked back.